All right, it's time for more Idris chat. Time for more Idris chatting. 3 minutes ago, Inside Star Citizen, Tactical Capital. They're going to be talking all about the Idris. Here we go.
Last week was our inaugural Idris War Games test, and while that completed earlier this week with many lessons learned, and the ship itself is still awaiting important resource management, maelstrom, multi-crew gameplay work, and more before it'll arrive permanently in the persistent universe, we here at ISC still jumped at the chance to showcase the current artistic progress of the vehicle inside and out. And
because most people weren't able to see it.
As well as to enlist a few of our oldest friends in providing a sort of director's commentary to the proceedings. Here's how it went.
Just look at the camera, so hi, I'm John Crook. I'm Nick Tearsley, part of the art director for 2022 era.
Your new title.
I don't even know what I am anymore. Shall I say that? Shall I say that? That'd be good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nate. I've not got a clue what I am anymore.
He's the one.
That'll go down well.
The one beef of the
Should we
week.
do that? Yeah.
Get it
Some
in early.
days I'm this, other days I'm that.
What do you want to be today, Nate?
I don't know what I want to be today. What should I be today? Yeah, I was the art director for the thing. There you go.
Do you want me to go first?
You can be my bloody guest, mate.
Okay. Hi, my name's John Crew. I'm the vehicle art director.
Hi, my name's Nate. I was the vehicle art director.
We've been asked today
Not anymore.
to give you a little director's commentary over the Idris that you will have seen in the PU being fought over recently. Right, so the exterior, this has had quite a few iterations over time in terms of not the shape stayed the same, but how like the breakup, the materials on it,
Yeah,
the engine the thrusters of.
Yeah, the shapes remain pretty true. We did make amendments to the exterior to fit the interior in because the number of spaces that we needed for Squadron sort of slowly increased. So it's a very...
Yeah, this thing has grown over its initial size quite significantly. Or like, I remember it was big, then it got small, and then it got big again. Something like that.
tightly packed capital ship.
If you look at the original concept, it was quite a thin ship as well.
Yeah.
It just couldn't fit everything in it.
I think my favourite feature from the original one was the hilarious flight of stairs that came down in the middle of the flight deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my first fix.
I mean, it's sick.
And we're gonna fly into the back of it, which is the way most players should normally enter the Idris.
Enter from the back, guys.
Gear deployed. Landing complete.
You can go in the front, but that'll be a bit.
It's getting dark now, John.
So there we go. In Squadron, there is space for 2 Gladiuses, Gladii, and there's a space for the Argo and PV at the back, but you can technically fit 3 ships in
You could fit a lot of ships in here.
here.
Yeah, when you first land, you'll sort of notice that the exits for the hangar are generally sort of at a lower level. One of the things we do a lot of throughout the ship actually is just slight changes in elevation, even though you're on the same deck. And the general layout is fairly symmetrical, I would say. The ship, when it was first put together, was really sort of, I would say, designed from the inside out. So there was a lot of amendments on the exterior to make the interior. You know, interior to me is always king. You spend a lot longer on the interior of the ship. So we sculpted the exterior skin around that. If you were to hide that exterior, I mean, there is no breathing room. It is like a bit of an engineering masterpiece, to be honest.
Wow.
So this is where the MPUV hangs from the ceiling.
Skydiving also.
Yeah, I've watched many people accidentally fall out the bottom of the Idris in atmosphere out that hole. So don't do that.
Or if you want to recreate the alien dropship scene, it's
do
pretty
that.
cool. The gravity room was originally upstairs. We had to shift things around through the process again, taking inspiration from real world scientific areas. That whole room actually closes into its own cylinder. You have to sort of open the door to sort of get in, and
That's
you can
super
close it
cool
behind you.
looking.
It's quite a trip. And for all intents and purposes, unless you're going to your bunk or you're going to very specific areas like the briefing room or the gravity room, which you've just seen there are no dead ends. It was put together when I was on the ship and originally sort of designed it. It was very much sort of focused around multiplayer combat at the time, and a good multiplayer map is you've always got options. You've always got at least 2 options at every corridor, every room.
You're constantly flowing.
Do you think at some point they were really trying to make the Capture the Idris event and then just realized they couldn't or something?
Yeah,
Round
yeah,
it.
no dead end. So yeah, as you can see.
I actually had a bug this morning come through about the writing on the wall being shorthand.
Oh dear.
So it's spelt incorrectly.
Oh.
I was like, no, it's not. It's an intentional choice.
Yeah.
So we've got the ATC room, which overlooks the hangar, which is obviously very useful for being an ATC. We'll come back later to the other side to see what's in there. There's a lot of decks to the...
See, like, this is where it's like that room in particular feels very much like a Squadron 42 set thing rather than something you would actually interact with. Do you think that you'll legitimately have one person sitting in that ship, like launching and allowing fighters or other ships to come and go from it? Like that specific, just have one panel that does that? I don't know,
Idris?
Yeah.
One role
yeah,
that
there's
does
the sub deck
that.
in the Argo, which you know
It's gonna be
you've
RP
seen,
stuff,
or
yeah.
the utility vehicle, I should call it. You've got your main deck. This is the sort of the main symmetrical area, and then through the heart, I would say the center of that sort of floor plan is all of the, I would say, business side of the room. So obviously you've got your mess hall here.
It's a chow line. Don't talk about the chow line. It's
I hear roast lamb is still on special.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an inside joke, by the way. Sleeping quarters.
This is for your general crew
Yep.
for the ship. The bunks have shutters on them for a bit more privacy.
With inbuilt home entertainment system.
So this is 2 mirrored, I guess, solo cabins. The pilots
this will
get
ever work?
their own little area at the end.
Which are about to get a little bit bigger, but you didn't hear that from me.
So the version that you're seeing here is taken from a point in time on Squadron recently, but there are lots of little tweaks that we'll talk about in the future to deliver more of the Idris. One of them, the missile room, is a big one that's still to come that is not available here at this time. But there's, like Nate said, lots of other little tweaks as we get closer to shipping Squadron that we'll be making.
Again, inspirations with regards to archetype for Aegis. You can see there's a strong
So feature complete?
inspiration from some of my favorite 1980s movies through here. I like
guess,
to see material breakup, introduce textures, leather where we can do to make it feel a bit softer and more inviting, as a good habitational area should be. And it's different for different ships, right? But when you're designing a capital ship, it kind of needs to tick all of the boxes. From a putting the ship together point of view, everything is modular. So you'll notice probably in the PU now, a lot of these elements are reused in some of the Aegis ships, simply because, we try and put the ships together in a modular fashion. And the bigger the ship gets, the more modular it needs to be. You really want to avoid doing too much unique stuff because it will hammer your video memory. Because this was I would say it's the first capital ship we've done. It is the first, isn't it? Yeah, and it was really sort of, genesis of, this was put into production actually around the same time as the Retaliator, many years ago. And it was at that time that we started to establish, a really good understanding of how we want habitational areas to feel and look, feeling being a prominent feature. Engineering, again, completely different. You got the technology side of it and the medical side of it. So they became the sort of like 4 style guides, I would say, that became the springboard for a lot of the other ships.
Interesting, because it does look very much like the Carrack, right? The medical bay in a lot of ways, and okay, cool.
To sort of follow on from.
Yeah, you see a lot of similar stuff in the Hammerhead, which actually uses a lot of the Idris kit as well. And different areas have their different technical feeling.
You'll notice here when you come in through the centre of the med bay, for example, there are very, very, very little right angles. When you look at the floor plan, for example, it generally dollies off at 45-degree angles or 60-degree angles. I don't like right angles in floor plans. Things need to flow. As you can see there, you're going to get a right angle when you come out of a door. There's not much you can do about that. But yeah, and it's all interweaved. You'll notice there's lots of windows. Look outside. There's lots of windows. Look back into the hangar. So we're not doing any cheating. Escape pods here.
Yeah, right at the front of the ship now. So this is the manned turret at the front, the big one up top. And then lots of escape pods here for everyone that's in the sort of upper front half if things go sideways and you need to get off the ship.
I can't believe they still talk about escape pods as like a feature, but they've never worked ever.
So going back down starboard side, have to do the bathroom head of port and starboard.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that, John, because navigation has been a little bit of an issue. So these corridors that you're running around at the moment, they're going to have a lot more of an injection of colour in the future. So you'll have a much better understanding of whether you're going forwards or backwards or whether you're on the left or the right. Worth noting as well, like all the spaces that you're seeing are completely undressed. There are, tens of thousands of entities that end up on top of what you're seeing for Squadron because it needs to feel more lived in, it needs to tell that story. So it's kind of bare bones seeing it this way, which is kind of strange for me at the moment.
Yeah, it was very strange when we were getting this ready for the PU to take off all those layers and sort of see it in a state that we've not seen.
Plus also we're not seeing it with NPCs.
Yeah.
When you see this with NPCs and, people walking around carrying out their duties,
you won't be able to see it with NPCs because your computer will explode.
Engineers doing their things at panels or whatnot, it feels lived in, it feels alive. But hopefully when it goes into the PU, there'll be plenty of people running around anyway, which will make it feel very similar for you guys.
Hamster balls.
You want to get buff? Go to the gym.
I don't know what we had there
I don't
originally.
Get what the point
opposite
is.
the ATC, was it? It was the pilot.
It was the pilot ready area, but we moved the pilot ready area down to the same level as the hangar, so you can get your gear, scramble out as quickly as possible, rather than getting your gear,
run down a flight of stairs,
falling down 2 flights of stairs, and then sort of hobbling into your ship with a broken ankle.
I wonder if we will have like
back.
stamina and things like that. I don't think so.
We're sort of halfway, 3/4 of the way back.
Yeah, you got your sort of, I think...
The crossover point here.
Yeah, you got 2 crossover points on the hangar. Now you're going to sort of come through, and this is where a lot of the asymmetry comes in, although the footprint is sort of similar. You'll come through. On one side, you've got Brig, which is where all the naughty people go, and we have a lot of naughty people in the game. There's a security office in there, and on the opposite side of that is, basically the opposite side of the ship, is the armory, which you'll see in a little bit.
Big escape pods, so big shared ones rather than individual pods. You might have seen, as we've gone around, some big red signposted rooms. They, I believe, have EVA airlocks in them as well as sort of maintenance storage.
I don't think we
areas,
were
so
able
all
to
signposted
EVA
so
from
you know
those, though,
in a
right?
hurry where to go. Then the main briefing room.
Main briefing room, again, integral to Squadron. This is where you're going to get your mission briefings and so on. It's a big ship.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Like I say, there's a lot crammed in.
Yeah.
So now we're on the opposite side to where the brig was. So this is the armory and shooting range.
Quite a bit of inspiration from...
Again, I don't want this ship in particular for me and my group. I want something like it, though.
RoboCop. Yeah, as you can probably all tell, I'm a bit of an 80s buff when it comes to the movies. When I had to do things for real, actually build things, it visually makes
yeah, I think the Kraken is going to be for me.
As a visual kind of guy.
That firing range area is another one of the areas that has changed around a bit over time because it was an all-in-one.
I think it was on the other side as well.
Yeah.
I think we flipped it. And then we got into the logistics of, what happens if you take your gun away from there? What's going to happen to you as a player? So there was, 'cause you're not supposed to walk around a military ship with a firearm in your hand, basically. So, yeah, lots of minor changes there, more for the social experience.
So this is above the rear of the hangar, not all the way at the back.
This is so cool.
Because it has 2 lifts that go down to, or 1 lift that goes down to the...
Two. Yeah,
Or one each side?
there's one each side that connects with the hangar. So if you're bringing in supplies or getting ready to go out on a long journey into the depths of space, you can, utility vehicle drops the cargo off and you can load up pretty efficiently.
I love that.
Decontamination area before you get into what would be the engine room.
Oh, cool.
Very different feeling, like we talked about, compared to the rest of the ship.
Yeah, it's the thing with Aegis, we sort of looked at a lot of real-world scientific.
Question for CIG: will there be safe spaces on the Idris? How will you handle griefing? How is that a question?
I would say, hydrogen colliders, nuclear reactors. CERN was a big sort of inspiration with a lot of the paneling and general sort of feel. And that's continued in the Gauntlet and a lot of the other Aegis ships that you'll see.
And then there's
I knew
you'll
it
see
was
them
big.
dotted around
God
in all the
damn
corridors,
it.
but there's a lot of wall panels that hold all the components. So whilst we do have some big capital size components like in the engine room, there's a lot of sort of secondary redundancy with all these extra wall panels dotted around.
Like, just to say, how will you handle griefing in this video makes no sense. It was like, it has to be bait, but it's so silly, I'm going to say it anyway.
So if one area of the ship goes down, it's not completely scuppered. You can still route
got
power
me.
around.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing in the original design document, John, where if life support systems went down on the rear of the ship, there's actually sort of like large bulkheads that close that section of the ship off, so the rest of the ship can survive. So again, thinking about sort of multiplayer aspect, if you were to try and ambush one of these things, I think there's going to be quite a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah, those bulkheads, I think you probably will have seen some of them in the corridors as we watch big yellowy orange.
Yellowy orange, okay. The layout as well, the engine room, you'll notice, is pretty much, if you were boarding the ship from the hangar, pretty much the most well-protected room of the ship.
The engine
again,
room,
with
okay.
that multiplayer feeling in mind. I think going off, do you remember Titan mode? Squadron, not Squadron, Battlefield?
Yeah.
Really just trying to create
Titan
this sort of
mode.
layer up on layer up on layer until you get to the engine room to make that quite difficult to ultimately disable the ship.
Like we talked about, there's a lot of flow in the interior, but there are those areas that have very distinct choke points to get to. Like the bridge is one, whilst there is multiple ways to get there, they're quite well defendable, and then the engine room is the other. So those are two areas you really don't want people getting to uninvited.
Yeah.
I never played that game.
There's a few ways you can go
That's cool.
up to the bridge. There's obviously this lift, but there is also a set of staircases either side. So you have these sort of tactical stations at the back, flanking each side, down on a lower level from the main bridge area.
I think I'm
So, like, I just watched Morph's video on, like, his experience with this, but now watching this, like, for Morph's video, I was big on, like, I really want this for me as, like, an org or whatever, like a ship like this or this ship in particular. But watching this is, like, I've never really been hyped to play Squadron. I really want to play Squadron now.
I would say most proud
this
of
is
on the
the
bridge. There's been a lot of rework
Right.
done, but you'll notice here the view out. It's pretty spectacular.
They're showing
Removed
so much of
the-
Squadron in
what
a
would
weird
be,
way.
The cross frame, which went across the front of the ship, so you got completely unobstructed
Voidy.
views out to space. But it still feels chunky and weighty, which it needs to, which is a success.
So that was a little bit of a director's commentary on the Idris, which hopefully you'll have seen and experienced as part of the event that's been going on in the...
John, not many people did. I got news for you. If this was recorded early, almost nobody got to see what you just showed, and that's why this video was so essential. So at least somebody could.
Persistent universe recently, and as great as the ship looks in the video and the events, there's still quite a bit of work to do before we can give it to players to have for real. things like resource network, multi-crew gameplay, all these things that make it an actual living, breathing capital ship that you want
How about a server that can handle more than one of these?
to run and own. That's pretty much it for now.
Yeah, to echo what John said, hope you enjoyed what you saw. Still a ways to go with regards to sort of delivering, the ship as a whole for the PU. But I just want to give a shout out to all the teams that have been involved in working on it. I mean, the list is endless. Artists, designers, concept artists, lighting crew, social design, level design. I mean, it's huge.
Over many
there is
years.
literally hundreds of people involved in delivering such an asset to yourselves, and we really hope with the limited time that you get it, that you really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's people at the company that haven't touched it in some way or form over the years. It's such a big part of the experience.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Idris is
We learned that CIG is still not very good at doing
a
events.
delight to behold inside and out, that it's benefited and continues to do so from years of iteration in Squadron 42, that there's still lots to be done beyond the currently fantastic art to bring the gameplay to it that it and its owners deserve, and that when all that is said and done, this is going to be one heck of an addition to the persistent universe. For Inside
For
Jared
real.
Huckabee, oh no, is just the ship you've been looking for? For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
He got it.
Some weeks you have it, some weeks you don't.
Is there anything? There's still extra.
Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
I don't know if you should ever show this image, ever.
Stupid.
But I guess because Dune 2 or whatever, right? But, I mean, I think that's a really good look at the Idris, a really good way of explaining it to us a little bit, too. And I think the thing that we learned the most is that they took layers and layers of assets off of this ship to give it to us. So when we do, like, they're not spoiling that much of Squadron, or there's still a lot more for us to see, and that it's a ways away before it gets in our hands. But outside of that, I thought it was, like, as far as an art episode of a game, of this game, that was one of the better ones, because I think it's just an asset that everybody probably wants to use at some point, right? So very, very cool. Very, very cool.